What is up, guys? My name is Matt, and this is my early sneak peek at the new Dungeons & Dragons LEGO set. We're going to be going through all the photos that LEGO has released so far and some of the other information I've been able to find out online. And just to let you guys know, I have never played Dungeons & Dragons in my life, so if I misspeak about any of this or say something ridiculous that doesn't make sense, I'm sorry. We're also going to hear from one of the designers on this set, Mark Stafford, who I think did a really nice job translating the original submission for this contest winner into a finished retail LEGO set. He had some really good insights on some of the decision making and why things look the way they do in this set. This set includes 3,745 pieces, which is a pretty high piece count. This set is going to retail for $360, which we're going to talk a little bit about later because that's a pretty high price. That's $470 Canadian, so I'm really sorry for you guys. You guys are getting the short end up there. Looking at it from the front, this thing just really presents beautifully, I think. You know, if you're a huge castle nerd like I am, you love to see any castle we can get our hands on. This one has a little bit more fantasy look. You know, I really like the blue and the purple colors. The red dragon stands out really well. But you know, one of the things that's really interesting about this set is that because it's modular and was designed that way, it can be used as a D&D play set. So you can, you know, have your campaign within the set, which sounds really cool to me. This makes me kind of interested in what that experience might be like to play in this set. Going on to one of the three-quarter views, we can see that the set basically consists of a really huge tall tower, which we can see in the back here. There is some kind of tavern in the front. It's an inn/tavern called In Plain Sight, which I think is really kind of funny and clever. On the right, there's a little secondary tower, which looks like it's connected to the main tower via a bridge over there. And then between those two on the ground level, there's like a wooded area with an open zone and a large tree growing against the stone wall. I'm actually a really big fan of that tree uses a black trunk like the tree in some of the older vintage sets and Lion Knight's Castle does. There are 6 minifigures in this set. Down in the lower left, we see what looks like the innkeeper with his sort of weird, creepy, sussy grin. To his right, or to his left, to our right, is an owl bear, which looks pretty cool. I love those printed eyes. That looks really, really nice. There's some kind of crazy growth or something coming up out of the water, which looks really cool. On one of the tiles against that stone bridge, we can see some kind of dragon icon there. And that's clearly a sticker, which is really unfortunate because, you know, for this price, I would really love to see 0 stickers, which we definitely don't get. There are a lot of prints in this set too, but there are definitely some stickers. On the upper floor of that meandering tall stone tower, we can see one of these new door pieces, which looks really, really good and really feels like it fits a fantasy universe like Dungeons & Dragons. Just outside of that door, we can see our orc rogue there with a little knife of some kind and maybe what looks like a crossbow. But again, I think just looking at this tower, even though it's open in the back, it looks really detailed on the outside to me. There's so many really nice textural things going on with all the different tiles and stuff placed on the outside. So you can tell we're getting some interesting snot techniques, at least in this section of the tower. Turning the set around, we can see again that really great looking door on the far left. To the right of that door is a really cool looking beholder shield, which I'm pretty excited to see is a print and not a sticker. Below that is some kind of cool chamber with, I don't know what those black things are, but they look really creepy and scary and there's a skeleton in there. To the right of all that, also in that little connected room, is a gelatinous cube, which looks super, super cool. I love to see that thing. Above that, in a grassy area, is what looks like our gnome fighter, which looks really cool here. One interesting thing to note about all these minifigures is that they come with 2 heads. So you can make any of these minifigs either a male or a female character, which I think is really cool and really exciting and something that they should have been doing for a long time. But I really like having that option, especially in this fantasy set where you're picking your own character. It makes a ton of sense to be able to choose what you want to be. That gnome fighter is fighting those little mushrooms, it looks like. Above them, we can again see our orc rogue, and he's fighting a displacer beast, which looks pretty good. I don't think it looks quite as good as the beholder that we're going to see soon, but it looks pretty nice. Looking over on the right, we can see some kind of like dragon throne or dragon orb kind of a thing, which looks really crazy with a skeleton with a key, and that looks super creepy. There's some kind of like elf wizard in the background holding her staff with a gem on top, and that looks really cool. Up on a higher level in the tower, we can see what looks like the innkeeper doing his black magic stuff or whatever kind of shenanigans he's up to. He's holding some kind of staff and we don't see his face, so who knows in what ways he might have been corrupted by the dragon. I'm not really sure, but I like all the Easter eggs and sort of like fun little story narrative play features that we can find sprinkled throughout the set that hopefully would make this a really fun set for a campaign to take place in. If we drop all the way down to the bottom level, we can see what looks like the dwarf cleric with a female face here, I believe, with a different hairstyle than some of the other photos, fighting a skeleton. There's another skeleton on the stairs back there. Those stairs are made from these cool, like, spiral staircase pieces that I think were introduced for the Hogwarts line at some point in the past. In this image, we can see most of the minifigures and monsters that are in this set, although not all of them. So there's a dwarf cleric here on the far left standing next to one of the, I believe, 3 skeletons that come with this set. There's a beholder, which I think looks really, really good. I actually love the way this beholder looks. The purple looks really great. All those eyes look cool. There's an elf wizard next to that beholder, holding some kind of like spell book and a really, really great looking staff. Next to the elf is some kind of lizard folk or something. Next to the lizard person is a gelatinous cube, which looks pretty cool. Knowing just a tiny bit about this monster, it would have been cool to see something else sort of floating around in there, but that's fine. Next to that cube is a gnome fighter, which looks really, really great holding that beholder shield. Next to that gnome fighter is that displacer beast that we saw a minute ago. Next to that displacer beast, we've got an orc rogue, and he looks really, really cool. I love him and his cape and his hood thing. Really nice prints on all these minifigs. Looking at this exterior portion, we can see this grassy area with a tree next to it. We can see that bridge in the background with those 2 tiles on it with stickers on them. Again, not my favorite, especially for this price. But I do really like all the textural things happening and the growth and the plants going on at the bottom next to the water. We can see some broken looking stairs in the background there leading up to that upper portion, which looks really, really nice, I think. Looking at the close-up of this other module with a gnome fighter holding a key, there's that orc rogue in the background holding a knife, so I don't know if they're about to fight each other. Looks like that orc rogue is about to fall into this booby trap. I'm not sure what's happening in the lower right, but it looks like there's some kind of like secret entrance, some kind of like trap area with tentacles or something or spikes sticking out of the doorway, and that looks really, really cool. Next, we can see this tower module, which looks really good. It's really, really tall with some cool earth-colored materials in the lower left, where it sort of connects to the other part of the exterior, and then transitioning into that stone texture with flat bricks and then some of the masonry bricks, which I love. There are several other modules we can see here, and we can tell that they connect through these little blue Technic pins, so you can line everything up and reposition it. This one looks like the exterior of the inn, so we see that in plain sight, which is kind of funny. It is a sticker, unfortunately. In the next image, we can see the interior of that module, so it's pretty cramped in there with all these guys, but we see all 6 minifigures in this space, with the orc rogue in the background, the dwarf cleric on the left holding a beer, that gnome fighter's in the middle. I love that hair and ear integrated hairpiece. It looks like that lizard folk person is a lute player, so that's kind of cool. And on the right, we've got that tavern keeper, again with that sussy face, but he's wearing that dragon charm or whatever on his chest, so who knows what he's up to. I'm not buying that he's just a simple innkeeper though. This does make me a little bit curious what it's going to be like to play on this set. I think they're going to have a live stream showing that at some point, and I kind of want to watch that just because some of these look a little snug. Like, I don't know if like characters occupy the same space all the time or if they spread out, but if you have a lot of people getting their hands in there, especially like adults with bigger hands, that looks like it could be tricky to arrange all these minifigs in there. In the next image, we see the upper level of that tavern with the blue roof with these like purple tiles on it, which I think looks pretty cool. I actually really like this color combination. Mark Stafford, the Lego designer, was asked why he chose this color. So the original submission, let's take a look at that real quick. The original submission looked actually super similar to this. I'm kind of amazed how closely they were able to stay to that original look and feel of the submission. That inn has a dark red roof, which they obviously didn't use. Mostly because, as Mark said, and this makes complete sense to me as a designer, I think for Dungeons & Dragons, that red dragon is so iconic and so recognizable that it just made so much sense to go with red for the dragon. And because they went with a red dragon, they couldn't also use a red roof because then there just wouldn't be enough contrast and it wouldn't make sense visually, you know? Next, we're looking at the other side of that staircase module, and we can see there's a door on the other side of that staircase, and above that door is this picture frame that looks like it shows 2 young dragons in love holding an egg, so that's kind of creepy. And I don't know what's going on with that pink slimy like tentacle stuff below that, but it looks really cool and creepy. But it looks like yet another example of how Lego has really tried to include and pack in as many like little detailed play functions as possible. Let's go back to that first image again and just look at the overall picture, and then maybe let's talk for a minute about the dragon, because a lot of people are wondering, like, in that original submission, the dragon tail wrapped around the tower and it looked really cool, and it had brick-built wings. So one of the things that Mark Stafford talked about when he was discussing this set was that the dragon as submitted was really, really heavy. And, you know, not only would it be a challenge to build, but it would be a huge challenge to display on this set because it was so heavy. You know, like, I think Lucas, the original designer of this set, used the studio software to create it, where there's no gravity. So you could do all kinds of things like position all your characters and monsters in really cool ways that look really fun, but would maybe not work so well in real life. It wouldn't be able to support itself, and then the head would never be able to hold itself up, or it would just be really, really fragile. So let's talk about price, because this thing is not cheap. $360 is a real put-off for a lot of people, including me. I am probably not going to get this set because, you know, I have to pay rent. I don't get these sets for free. I have to buy them myself, and $360 is a lot of money, even though this looks like a really cool set, and this would look really nice next to my Lion Knight's castle. A lot of people have asked, why was this created in one large set and not broken into much smaller modules? Because I think a lot of people are rightly thinking that this would have been so great to see like a lot of like smaller individual sets that maybe cost $30 to $60 instead of one huge set that's $360. And what the designer said was that the scale of this was basically determined by the scale of the original submission, and they didn't want to deviate too much from that. And if you compare this to other ideas sets, like the Polaroid camera, terrible deal. That's a horrible deal. If you look at the price per piece of that set, it's terrible. If you look at the Orient Express, terrible deal. Oh man, that's a bad deal. So those are my thoughts after reading a little bit about it, looking at all those images and hearing from the designer. But I'm really curious to know what you guys think. Is this something you plan on getting? Are you into this set? Do you like Dungeons & Dragons, or do you just like this for the castle aspects of it? Let me know what you think about the price, if it seems reasonable or not compared to other LEGO sets. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please feel free to comment down below or subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Later, nerds!